generally you come for an interview day, you have your black portfolio, you come with some sketchbooks, sometimes with some samples, and then we just open them up together. And it's quite a relaxed atmosphere. We're usually in the workshops, and then you have the chance to show me what you've been doing. Don't worry about the contents too much. It can vary enormously from the education you had prior, if you're a mature student, if you come back into education. It's very important, I think, that you show, first of all, the passion for the subject you want to go to and why you want to do it. And sometimes you will not necessarily have specific training in jewelry or textile and ceramics and glass. And don't worry that you cannot show that you made something in that specific field. But what I want to see is really how you go about developing ideas in terms of if you go to a museum and you draw something in there and how you relate that into an object or a piece of work later. It can be that you just enjoy drawing and you have a passion for making. That does not necessarily need to be made into a art form. It can be just that you like to repair things, that you like to build little boxes, that you like to restore things at home, that you like to upholster something. And that sort of gives me an indication that you actually enjoy the three-dimensionality of what you do. So this student came and she'd done an access for foundation. And it was very interesting that she just draws with colour. And colour is also quite an important part of what we do. And it's not saying necessarily that it is ceramics or textiles or jewellery. It's just that you observe the world out there. And that's something I want to see. So then it's sort of much more refined to work in terms of using leaves and stitching into leaves. So even you might have had in your textile class at college the availability of a sewing machine, and then sort of working into your artwork might show your interest towards textiles. Generally looking at nature and printing different colors. Again, the lino prints. Again, something which is not necessarily so relevant to our subject area, but it shows the way you work with color, how you perceive color. And that's something I'm very interested to see. So this is a vase, just very simply a cylinder with different types of holes, can be made into a light, or it could be even just a small vase. So it's for the interpretation of the viewer, but the sort of plug indicates it's a light. Some photography, which usually takes place if you do an access or foundation program. So these are sort of explorations in ceramics, and this relates to the cell structures, and they're applied onto the ceramic forms. And this is the final design. And again, just sort of from photograms, quite simply used and added with different colors, shows me a way. And then the application of a photogram on an architectural site, it doesn't necessarily need to be as complex as this. It's just really lovely to see the idea being transferred from something which you will have learned maybe at school or in a foundation degree, but you then apply it onto a much more complex piece of work. She looks at the coloring of glass and beads and how they're grouped. And this instance is, she's inspired by simply just butterflies and tried to recreate this with wire work. And it's just sort of an annotation of what inspires you to do what, helps to understand the process. It's not that we just want you to just make anything, but it's a thought process of how and why you made it. It's important to me. It's not necessarily the outcome that it is sort of beautifully made. It's more the idea which was behind why you made it is important to me. If you make a butterfly necklace, I want you to be inspired by butterflies, but the type of butterflies are also important to me. So by just highlighting different ideas of where you've seen butterflies, which are already stylized and made in different artistic ways. That also helps to influence your design. And that's also called artist research. And if you have evidence of that in your sketchbook, that's something I like to see. And also what I find important is that the people you aspire to be, or the people you like their work of, that's something, an indication of your direction. Maybe that you want to become one day like them, or they have a certain way of working that inspires you. Your skill base is not there yet, but one day you will be there, and then you will be sort of their contemporaries in terms of making. And that's something I like to see as well in a portfolio, not just your work, but also the work of others and those who inspire you. Where you could start would be with a visit to a museum, and a very good one is if you have ever the chance to go to Oxford to visit the Pitt Rivers Museum. It's such a wonderful place of all oddities. And next to the Pitt Rivers Museum, you have the Museum of Natural History. And just by you engaging and taking photographs of what is in the museum, and that also helps me to see the way you see and through your eyes, and specifically sort of looking at butterflies and specimens in jars. That could trigger a whole series of wonderful designs. Or even that you just look onto stones, historically where they come from, and even just fern, and how fern is engraved in stones. And then you can take photos from it. And then you can conduct some research into artists who have historically looked at natural forms in microcosm. And then from that on, you could really just try to draw from other artists. You can draw directly from darkroom photography, that you look at organisms and photograph them and draw directly from them. Cell structures. And those cell structures are then translated into ceramic pieces. Specimen jars can be translated into ceramic forms. So a visit to a museum can be the starting point for many things to come. That's the trick, really, to demonstrate that when you go to a museum, that you see quite complex forms, and then to reduce them to make them yours, and then adding something of interest again to these forms. That's really the design process. And if you can visualize that in a very complex manner or in a quite simplified manner, then I'm very, very happy, and you're definitely coming on to this program. You will always be interviewed with two people being present. One is an academic member of staff, and one is usually a student on the program. So you feel a little bit more relaxed having a question answered by a student who's actually doing the program. You come and we have a quick look through your portfolio. Then we ask you to come back at a designated time, and you will have about 15 minutes in which we will ask you sort of several specific questions in relationship to what you brought on the day in your portfolio, but also about your hobbies and things you like to do. It's just about you as a person and how you sort of interact with the world. There are no trick questions. It's just you telling us maybe your aspirations of the future, and if you're not really knowing those, that's absolutely fine. It's just finding out the interest and what makes you tick in terms of wanting to engage with a discipline which is very much about making. And if you get across the notion of why you want to make with your hands and how you integrate that into your future career, that might be something of interest to us to hear. But there is not anywhere a moment where you sort of put under pressure to answer said questions. It's very much just a conversation where I want to find out from you how you see yourself evolving into a designer, a maker. And And also we want to welcome you in this university in terms of in the workshops. We're very hands-on, and I want you to feel that you can be developing yourself here. We don't expect everything to be done. You come here for 3 years to learn, or even 4, and learn those skills. So don't be afraid if you don't have those skills set out, but I just want to see an inclination of what you might want to do in future, and an inclination of things, how you view them, how you view your world. If it's a film, a book you've just recently read that might have inspired you, a question within that, how you can maybe visualize that, that would be something I want to hear. And it's not necessarily about, the future career you want to have, because you might not know that, and we will help you to come up with an answer to this question.